to the chairman of the committee, Mr. Waxman from California.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 4 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the gentleman from Iowa for yielding me the time and for managing this bill. He has played a very important role in the committee in the formulation of this legislation and is far more knowledgeable than many of us because he has had experience in bringing whistleblower lawsuits as an attorney. This bill that we are considering at this time would strengthen one of our most important weapons against waste, fraud, and abuse, and that is federal whistleblower protections. Protecting whistleblowers is a key component of government accountability. Federal employees are on the inside. They can see when there's waste going on or if there's corruption going on. They can see the signals of incompetent management. And what we want is to enable them to let us know, those of us in Congress, about these kinds of problems. So this bill would give them the protections to come forward and, in effect, blow the whistle on what they know is going on and that's not right to be continued. But I want to emphasize that one of the most important provisions of H.R. 985 protects national security whistleblowers. It's impossible to overstate how essential this provision will be. Now, there may be an attempt to try to strike this provision, and I want to make clear to my colleagues why they should not be misled into voting for such a motion. There are a lot of federal officials who knew the intelligence on Iraq was wrong. Officials in the CIA and the State Department knew that Iraq did not try to import uranium from Niger. Officials in the Energy Department knew the aluminum tubes were not suitable for nuclear centrifuges. Other officials knew the information from Curveball, so-called informant that turned out to be inaccurate. But the information that he was spreading about so-called mobile weapons labs were completely bogus. But none of these officials would come forward, in fact, none of them could come forward to Congress and share their doubts. If they did, they could have been stripped of their security clearances or they could have been fired. And we all know what the result has been. Nobody blew the whistle on the phony intelligence that got us into the Iraq war. It is imperative that national security employees be protected against retribution, so they will not be afraid to report national security abuses to members of Congress. When the intelligence is wrong, the consequences for our nation can be immense. H.R. 985 also extends whistleblower protections to employees of federal contractors. Every year, federal contractors do more and more of the government's work. In 2005, nearly 40 cents of every federal dollar outside of the entitlements went to private companies. We need to encourage the employees of these private companies to report wasteful spending. We heard testimony in our Oversight Committee about a Halliburton truck driver, not just one, but many of them, who were told if they had a flat tire or some mechanical problem, not to worry about it. Torch the truck. They'll just go and buy another one. After all, these were cost-plus contracts. Well, this abuse was so wanton that one of the truck drivers finally blew the whistle. But rather than being protected for speaking out for the American taxpayer, he was fired. Passage of this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Additional minute from the gentleman from Iowa.
I yield back another 1 minute from my time.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Finally, this passage of this bill would stop this kind of intimidation. This legislation includes an important provision that will help check the growing problem of political interference with science. It gives explicit provisions to protect the federal employee who reports instances where federal scientific research is suppressed or distorted for political reasons. don't buy the argument that this should be struck. We ought to protect scientists from those that would try to suppress or distort their scientific work. The bill is bipartisan. It was co-sponsored by Ranking Member and former Chairman Tom Davis of the Oversight Committee and former Subcommittee Chair Todd Platts. It passed unanimously last month by the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. It is carefully crafted legislation that protects both our national security and the interests of the American taxpayer, and I urge its adoption and yield back the balance of my minute.
Gentlemen,